Thank you all for joining today. Like Sam said, my name is Cory Heitz, and I'm the CEO and founder of Prep Athletics. And in this presentation, I'm going to give you guys an overview and girls overview of the prep school basketball world that exists here in the United States. And just a fun fact, all the pictures of players in all of these slides are former clients of mine, and they're permanent members of the Prep Athletics family. So just fun facts there. And this is Philip Braca, who plays for Iowa. His dad played for the Clippers and the Pistons back in the day, and he's now playing in Serbia. So just a fun little tip there. So you might be wondering, why am I qualified to talk about prep schools? And I went to one, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about that story and my other family member that went to a prep school. But I grew up in Lexington, Kentucky, and went to a national powerhouse, Lexington Catholic High School. And our team had kids on it that went to Notre Dame, Georgia, Kentucky. And I just needed an extra year to get more reps in and to put on muscle because I graduated high school at 6'7", 195 pounds. And the only way I was going to get to D1 was to do a post-grad year, which is a fifth year of high school. And you can do these at prep schools. We'll talk about that more in a little bit. But I was a D1 or bust kid, right? We all know those kids nowadays. There's a lot of them. They've always been around. But the reason I was a D1 or bust kid is because I had five members of my family before me play D1. To start with, my uncle Jim, who was 6'10". Yeah, he played at Oklahoma. My father is 7 feet tall. He played at West Virginia before playing pro in Switzerland. Their baby brother Tom was 6'9", or is 6'9". He played at the University of Kentucky between 79 to 84, which meant he went to a Final Four during that time, and he got to back up two lottery picks in Melvin Turpin and Sam Bowie. And then he eventually got drafted by the Indiana Pacers himself. And then I had two cousins play D1. Renee, she played at Morehead State. And then my cousin Brad Miller played 4 years at Purdue and then 14 years in the NBA, to include two all-star team selections. And the cool thing about Brad is he also spent a year at prep school. His senior year of high school, he transferred out of his high school in Indiana to Maine Central Institute, which is known as the MCI, to play for Coach Max Good. Now, Max Good's a prep school legend, but he also was the head coach at one point of Loyola Marymount University, UNLV, and Bryant when they went from their transition from D2 to D1. So without prep school, I'm not playing D1. Without prep school, he's not playing in the NBA. So it's changed our family's trajectory. And so in 2008, I placed my first kid in prep school. And between then and now, I've placed kids from over 35 different countries, to include countries such as Singapore, Ghana, Switzerland, Panama, Argentina, and many more, at over 55 different prep schools, to include your Exeters, your Deerfields, your IMGs, your Hargraves, your Brewsters, your Worcester, and many more on top of that. So I'm passionate about this. It changed my family's life, and I want to change as many other kids' lives around the world that are qualified for prep school, because it's such a great opportunity. And that's what I'm going to share with you guys today. So what is prep school, right? If you don't know anything about it, you're probably curious of what it is. And there's about 100 of them in the U.S. that offer basketball. Most of them are located on the East Coast, a lot in New England. There's a few others that are sprinkled around the U.S., but think of them as mini college campuses. All right. You've got gyms, you've got dormitories, you've got cafeterias, you've got administrative offices, development officers, alumni networks, Wikipedia pages, accreditations. Like, these are legit places. Some of them have been around before America was even a country. Okay. You get top-notch coaching at these places, you get top-notch academics, and the grades are ninth grade through post-grad. Now, as I mentioned earlier, post-grad is what I did. It's like a fifth year of high school. And the cool thing about it is that it does not go against your NCAA eligibility at all, right? So it's like a free year you can get. And with the game getting older, with the transfer portal doing what it's doing now, anytime a kid can get older, the better. Okay. So that's an example of that. And these prep schools, while they're all prep schools and offer ninth through post-grad year, they're just like D1 programs where they have different personalities, right? And the example I like to give is Duke versus Eastern Washington, which Isaac will appreciate that reference. They're both D1 schools, but Duke has national championships. It's on the East Coast. They play in the ACC, very high academics. Eastern Washington doesn't get much play online, don't have much of a, they're not known as nationwide as Duke. So still D1 programs, but different personalities. The same is true of the prep school world. All right. So that's a general overview of what it is. And you might ask yourself, who is this for? Of all the kids that you're either parent of, or you coach, or you're around, who is prep school for? And it's for kids that just aren't satisfied with their current situation, who have a dream, right? They might need to mature more physically like I did. 17 to 20, that's the time of a boy's life when they become men. And it was during my post-grad year, didn't do anything lifting wise differently, didn't do anything eating wise differently, but I put on 20 pounds of muscle because that's when my DNA said, hey, it's time for me to become a man. So for physical benefits, that's what a prep school is for a post-grad year. If kids need to improve their academics, kids can go to very high academic prep schools, or they can go to prep schools where it helps them become NCAA eligible and everything in between. Kids might need to get away from a family situation or a certain group of friends. They might need to mature emotionally. It could be a bunch of different reasons, but you're going to get a lot of benefits going to a prep school, whether it's 9th through 12th or just for a post-grad year. All right. So for this conversation, I want to introduce 7 concepts that parents, players, and coaches need to know about the prep school world, just so they're more educated on it and they know for future kids more about this concept. All right. The first thing I want to get across is there's a difference between prep schools and basketball academies. All right. We just mentioned prep schools that are brick and mortar institutions. They've been around a while. They're accredited. They got great track records. Basketball academies are popping up all over the place out of thin air, right? And if I wanted to, on this call right now, I could start Cory's Basketball Academy. And all I need is gym time, transportation, and housing. Don't need accreditation. I don't need other adults watching kids. I don't need academics. I can just have an academy, right? And the problem with these is that I used to work with them back in the day when I was still starting out in this business. And I could place a kid at these schools for $5,000. And yeah, some of them would get placed in college. But the problem was a lot of lies were told to me. A lot of things weren't as they seemed. And examples of that are kids not getting placed in college, kids only being fed pasta and Cheerios from Costco, 6 kids sleeping in a room meant for 2 kids, lies about offers, et cetera, et cetera. I stopped working with those places a long time ago, and I only work with kids now that qualify for brick and mortar prep schools, like we mentioned earlier. All right. These basketball academies are popping up everywhere. There's a couple in my state of Colorado, and they're one false move away, one business move, one black swan event away from being shut down and leaving kids out to dry. And I'll give you 2 examples of that. The first is there was a prep school here in the Rocky Mountains that had 2 of the top big men in the country on their team. And it started up by a financier wanting to start a program out here. They played for a year on a basketball academy circuit. And then the following summer, the financier and the coach got into it. And the next day, the program is done, right? One move, it was done. Okay. Those 2 big men ended up having to transfer to another school for their final year, but that's how quickly these places can shut down. Another example that's a little bit more well known is Kanye West's Donda Academy. And they were pretty hot and heavy there for a year, got a lot of top 100 players. But even though money wasn't a problem with Kanye, because he's a self-proclaimed billionaire, he did go on an anti-Semitic rant. And the next day, his players left and schools wouldn't play him. And it was essentially done, right? If that happens at a prep school where a headmaster goes on an anti-Semitic rant, he will be fired and replaced. The school will not shut down. So one false move away. So kids can go to prep basketball academies. There's some good ones out there with some good people running them. I just haven't done the due diligence on all of them. And once again, I just tell families to do their due diligence. My website, which will be on the last slide, has a blog post of questions to ask basketball academies, right? Feel very comfortable when you're talking to them and make sure you're asking tough questions and find out how they answer them. Just in the news in the past month, there was a coach at a place in Florida called Mont Academy, not Montverde Academy, right? Which everybody knows. He called it Mont Academy. And he was taking players' money, not paying for hotel bills, not paying for other expenses, spending money on gambling and porn sites. And he was eventually arrested. And that's a guy you should not have in charge of your youth, right? So prep schools would never hire a guy like that, but that's the kind of people associated with the basketball academy world. So just wanted to let you know the differences between the two. And just a little quick sidebar here. There are brick and mortar prep schools with academy in their name, right? So Brewster Academy, Bridgeton Academy, Worcester Academy, Vermont Academy. Those are brick and mortar prep schools. They just happen to have academy in the name. So just don't get confused on that. All right. So that's the difference between the two. I wanted to make sure up front we got a clear designation on the difference between the two. Next up, let's talk about the basketball advantages for going to one of these prep schools. You've got schools that might have 10 D1 players on a team, and you might have schools that have barely a D3 walk-on and everything in between. All right. So the talent level can vary at these places. But the good thing is you're going to have players are going to have great competition in practice because these programs are getting players from all over the US and all over the world, and they want to be there. So these teams are going to be great in practice, great in open gyms, and then the
What?
actual
So
games
all
itself is going to have great competition. All right. So it's going to be better competition than most kids get, which is going to prepare them for college. Second up is kids are going to get exposure. Most high schools in America and around the world do not get college coaches walking into them. All right. At prep schools, you do. During the June scholastic period, which is new in the past few years, prep schools can actually get together with their teams and their coaches and play other prep schools during the live period in front of over 200 coaches from the college level. So that's a huge advantage right there for kids to get seen. Plus, the open gym period in the fall between August, when school starts, till practice starts in the middle of October, you've got coaches from all over the country visiting prep schools to check out the talent there, right? So there's no guarantee that their kids are going to get a scholarship offer like in the old days of open gyms, but you'll be seen, you'll get exposure. That's all you can ask for in this day and age. And that's more than 98% of kids get in high school currently. All right. There's also player development. Coaches run kids through one-on-one workouts, two-on-two workouts, three-on-three workouts. You get a lot of individual extra attention from a coach, and kids are closer to facilities. They can walk to a gym, they can walk to a weight room. They don't have to rely on friends or mom and dad to catch a ride to a gym where they might not have a key. There might be other events going on. So the chance to get more reps in during these years is just, it's a great advantage right there. And lastly, the big benefit is placement. These prep school coaches have to place their players in college, right? It's not an option. Now, it might not be a scholarship. It might not be D1 or D2, might not be a dream school, but it'll be the right fit at the right time. And in this environment with the transfer portal, you need an advocate. In my opinion, after doing this for 16 years and seeing this landscape, there's no better advocate than a prep school coach because every year they got to place kids from high major D1 guys all the way down to D3 high academics to everything in between. All right. So in this world, you need an advocate. And about 95%, actually 98% of my players that have gone to prep school have all been placed in college. The 2% you might be asking yourself, what happened to them? They actually went to prep school, realized that basketball was going to be just too much for them, and they might not have wanted to follow their college choice based on basketball. So they actually quit, which I think is a good thing because now they're picking a college based on what they actually want to do versus maybe playing a sport they don't love. And when you talk to a prep school coach and actually sign up with them, they want to know what your parameters are for the next level. They want to know, do you want to be on the East Coast, West Coast, Midwest, down South? You want to be in an urban school or rural school, big school, small school, public school, private school, run and gun offense, set it up, old coach, young coach? Is there a certain major you're looking to get a degree in? The more parameters you can give to a prep school coach, the more they can narrow which schools they're reaching out to on your behalf and help you in this placement. Like I said, a lot of these guys have coached at the college level. They're excellent coaches on the court and they're excellent with placing. And it's just a huge advantage that kids get going to prep school, especially in this market and environment with the transfer portal and with the game getting so much older. Okay. Next up, number 3 is academic advantages. These places have small classroom sizes. So kids are going to get individual attention. They're not going to be left behind. And everyone on campus wants these kids to succeed. All right. So you're going to get support you need at a campus. A lot of these prep schools offer AP classes, and a lot actually offer college credits where college professors come in and teach the classes. To where at some places, as a post grad and even earlier, you can get up to 18 college credit hours under your belt, right? The one caveat on there is you might take these college classes and you might choose a college that might not let you transfer them. That's the worst case scenario. But still, even if that happens, if you can't transfer them, you still got used to what a college classroom's like, what college workload is like. So when you get to a college campus after you graduate from prep school, you're going to hit the ground running because you're used to this type of education. All right, it's not going to be as much of a shock to you. The teachers at these prep schools live on campus. So if you need help, you can walk over to their dorm or their teacher housing and meet with them, and you're going to get a high quality education as well. Let's talk about the range of education at prep schools. On one end, you've got your Exeters, your Chokes, your Deerfield. These are some of the top prep schools in the entire world, right? Where you're going to get a world-class education. On this end, you've got prep schools that'll help kids become NCAA eligible. They'll help with retaking classes. They'll help with IEPs, which means you have a learning disability. And then there's everything in between. So no matter what your academics are, there's a place for kids in prep school where they can become eligible to play in college. Okay. And mind you, I'm talking about post grad a lot. If you're going 9th through 12th as a kid at these places, you're going through normal curriculum that you would at a high school, which is going to be on a higher level and much more competitive. All right, let's talk about emotional maturity. Number 4, when we all left home for the first time, we got homesick. It's just part of maturity, part of becoming a man, part of becoming a woman. And I know I got homesick during my post grad year, coming back from a road trip game in Wyoming, and it lasted about 24 hours. I was pretty depressed, maybe shed a tear or two. And once it was over, I was done. My homesickness was finished. So prep schools are pros at dealing with homesick kids. Like I said, some have been doing it for 200 years. It's a very supportive place. So once again, when these kids get to a college campus and their freshmen, classmates and teammates are missing mom and dad, they're missing their dog, they're missing their girlfriend, prep school kids are going to hit the ground running because they went through that transition already at a prep school. Kids are also going to learn other basic life skills like learning how to do their laundry, making sure they get up early on their own for an early morning workout without mom or dad breathing down their neck. Also, if an assignment's due tomorrow, you got to plan for that. You got to work on time management. Once again, without mom or dad helping you along. So kids are going to learn to be more independent. Like I said, they're going to hit the ground running when they get to college. Number 5 is cultural diversity. And you're going to be around, or players are going to be around kids at prep schools from different time zones in the U.S., different continents, different religious beliefs, different socioeconomic backgrounds. And that's one of the reasons that prep schools are so special, is because kids are going to be around people that don't look like them and don't have the same background as them. All right. In this picture, you'll see a young man shooting a basketball with a VMI jersey on. That kid's named Louis Tang. And I met Louis when he was a freshman in Taiwan, didn't speak a lick of English, but we brought him over to America as a sophomore. He spent 3 years at a prep school learning English, getting good enough grades and getting good enough test scores where he got a D1 scholarship to a high academic school in VMI. Now, that kid didn't speak English 3 years ago. Think about yourself going to Taiwan, trying to learn the language in 3 years, and then playing D1 after that at that level. It's amazing. It's one of my favorite stories I tell because of the hard work he put in showing it can be done. The other picture here is of Colonel Lawrence Yazzie. And Lawrence is a Navajo Native American, and he was also my roommate at prep school. Like I said, I went to the Air Force Academy's prep school. The first 3 weeks there were in basic training. And my future teammate and best friend was my roommate's, unbeknownst at the time. And we stayed up way too late that first night of basic training. And I was asking him, did he live in a teepee? Did he ride horses and shoot arrows with a bow? He was just as confused by me, being a Catholic kid from Kentucky. And he asked, did I race a horse in the Kentucky Derby? And why did the Pope wear a hat? So we were people from 2 different backgrounds meeting each other. And fast forward 15 years, he was the best man in my wedding. I was the best man in his wedding, and now he's a colonel in the United States Air Force. So not guaranteeing that's going to happen for every kid that goes to prep school, but those are the type of opportunities that can happen. Number 6 is the cost. So we're talking about all these great benefits to prep school. We got to wonder, how much does this cost? So the sticker price can be from $36,000 on the cheap end to $85,000 on the top end, which can include IMG, right? They're the outliers as being very expensive as far as tuition goes. But it doesn't mean you're going to pay that price. All right. We're going to talk about financial aid real quick, and I'm going to break down to you how it works. You've got 2 types of financial aid: need-based and merit-based. All right. We'll get to those in a second. When parents and families apply to prep school, they've got to go online to a website and fill out a financial aid form. It's right now called Clarity, right? And families insert their assets. They upload their tax returns. They talk about the expenses and liabilities they have. And this Clarity program will then spit out a number that says, hey, you can spend this much per year on tuition based on your financial report. And the prep schools that offer need-based aid, whatever that number is, that's the number you're paying. So if you're a family that's very wealthy and can write a check for the full prep school tuition, you're going to be fine. That's not a big deal. If you're a family that makes less than $100,000, there's a good chance you'll qualify to get almost a full scholarship or full aid at this prep school too, which is good. All right. That's need-based. Merit-based looks at that same number that the financial aid software kicked out, but they also take into account other things, right? How badly does the coach need your position? Do you play multiple sports? Do you speak another language? Are you from a state or a country that's not represented at that prep school? Do you do anything interesting like playing a piano or starting your own e-commerce business? Whatever makes you more interesting, you have a chance to get more aid, right, through merit money. Okay. So, one example I give is I had a 6'11 client from the West Coast from Oregon who had D2 offers, good grades, and didn't qualify for any financial aid because his family did well. But since he was tall, since he did have good grades, since he did already have scholarship offers, since he was from a state not well represented at prep schools, we got him into a prep school for $25,000. That school was happy. The family was happy. He ended up getting a D1 scholarship halfway through the season last year. So if you are interesting, if you bring something to the table, you can get financial aid through merit-based schools. It's hard to know. You got to look it up which ones are need-based or merit-based. I know that. If you have any questions, let me know. But over the 16 years I've been doing this, I've gotten $5 million in financial aid for my clients. All right. So I work on getting them the best value possible. And let's also talk about supply and demand. There's way more guards out there than big men, right? And there's a lot of guards reaching out to me and prep school coaches on a daily basis. And what do you need to do to get placed at a prep school if you're a guard? You got to have scholarship offers, right? So the coach doesn't have to work as hard, or you have to scholarship offers, or you have to have a blank check and write a check for a lot of money, or you've got to be interesting, like I just said. So these cookie cutter guards that got 2.9 GPAs from a state that's already represented at a prep school, it's going to be tough. And that's basic economics 101, supply and demand. There's just more guards than big men, and prep school coaches can be picky who they take on. All right. The last thing, families might spend money. Kids might leave their home and travel time zones away to do this prep school experience, but there's no guarantees, right? There's no crystal ball to know how this is going to turn out. I wish there was, but then again, I wish there wasn't, because then that would take the magic out of it and you wouldn't know how it's going to turn out. So some families are like, how do I know if I don't spend this money, if I'm going to get a scholarship or not? That's a chance you take, right? There's no guarantees in basketball. It's not always fair, but you put yourself in a better position to play at the next level, go into a prep school where you're going to get placed at the end of the day, and you're going to get all the other benefits we just talked about academically and emotionally. I've done all the background on the prep school basketball world, all the benefits. How do I help? Like I said, I can help families figure out what their value is, how much they need to pay at prep schools so they don't overpay. I know how much it changed my life and my cousin's life and our family's life. I come at this with passion on a day-to-day basis. And there's about three of us in the US that do this seriously and have done it for a while. I'm the only one that's played in the D1 program, the only one that's gone post grad. And I don't feel like I am an expert on this world. I know how it works inside and out. And I'm a matchmaker. I help kids find the right fitting prep school. And based on how good you are on the court, what your academics are, what you want to get out of the experience, what kind of end result you want, and then your finances. Once I know all that, I look at all the prep schools out there in the US and I narrow it down to the right fitting 3 to 5 for that individual family. All right. Then I help them through the process. I connect them with coaches. I tell them about each school. I guide them through the process. I never tell them where to go because that's their choice, right? They're the ones that are going to be in the foxhole. So I want them to make the choice. They can't go wrong with any prep school they pick, but there's usually a best pick for them. And to me, that's all based on the coach. All right. The coach is going to be the guy that's going to be doing the early morning workouts. The coach is going to be the guy determining playing time. The coach is going to be the guy ultimately calling coaches on your behalf. So to me, that is the most important reason for picking a prep school. And we don't just do boys, we do girls as well, but I'm passionate for it. I also do real estate development, which is great, but it doesn't get me excited about helping families from around the world and changing their lives and sometimes helping families save money on prep school. And at the end of the day, a lot of times it does end up in scholarships at the D2 and D1 level or getting a great D3 package. So that's what gives me joy, is changing lives, helping kids. And I just want to let as many people know that this is an option that's possible and available. And if you got any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm going to put my slide up here, my contact slide next. I got a YouTube channel. I've got a podcast. I've got tons of articles and blogs on my website. that tells you everything I said today, plus more. All this information is free, right? You're just hiring me to be an insurance plan to make sure you're talking to the right fitting prep schools out of the 100 that are out there. But I'm passionate. I'll answer anyone's questions. Feel free to reach out. And that's what I got. So if there's any questions after all that background on prep schools, be more than happy to answer them. I would highly suggest going to the website, prepathletics.com. Everything's on there. I would sign up for the newsletter. Comes out once a month. We don't inundate with you with too much, but we give updates on the prep school world. We share with who's signed in college, who's signed with prep school, and we offer some recommendations out there on how to be more educated in this atmosphere. And then on all the socials, we're out there. We're pretty aggressive on stuff. But like I said, I'm an open door. I want to share this information with anybody. I want to answer any questions anyone might have. So if I can help in that realm, please feel free to reach out.